The thing about humans is that they show up to places they absolutely should not be, wearing accessories that make you question every life choice that led to that moment. I am Krevarth, third cycle observer at the Galactic Military Institute on Proxima Station. And let me tell you, in my 214 rotations of service, I have seen some truly baffling species attempt to join our ranks, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the day Mira walked into Combat Theory 101 wearing what looked like a child's toy around her wrist. She was human. Obviously, you could tell by the way she moved, all loose-jointed and disturbingly flexible, like her skeletal structure was more of a suggestion than a rule. Her hair was dark, cut short in a style that seemed designed for practicality rather than aesthetics, which I suppose made sense for a species that apparently evolved thinking predators were just spicy friends they hadn't made yet. Is that Torvik? My colleague leaned closer to the observation screen, his crystalline eyes narrowing with what I could only describe as academic disgust. Is that human wearing jewelry to combat training? I adjusted the holographic display to get a better view. Sure enough, wrapped around Mira's left wrist was a braided bracelet that looked like it had been made by someone with exactly zero understanding of structural integrity or aesthetic value. Blue and green threads woven together with little metallic beads that caught the light every time she moved. It was the kind of thing you might give to a hatchling during their first bonding ceremony, not something you wore to the most prestigious military academy in 7 sectors. Apparently so, I muttered, making notes on my datapad. Species 7041. Human. Origin planet Earth. Previous military experience, none listed. Psychological evaluation pending. Fashion sense, catastrophic. The training hall below was filling up with cadets from across the Alliance. Scalorians with their multiple arms already stretching in preparation. Vex from the outer rim, their bioluminescent skin pulsing with nervous energy. A pair of Drenthi twins, hulking and confident, taking up twice the space anyone else needed. And then there was Mira, standing off to one side, idly checking her bracelet like it was some kind of tactical readout instead of a garish accessory. Instructor Vayne entered the hall, and the room fell silent immediately. Vayne was a legend. The Corthan warrior who had survived 3 sector wars, 2 assassination attempts, and 1 incident involving a diplomatic dinner that we were contractually obligated never to discuss. His scales were scarred from countless battles, his eyes sharp enough to spot weakness from across a canyon, and his patience for nonsense measured in microseconds. Cadets. Vayne's voice rumbled through the hall like distant thunder, carrying that particular tone that made even the most confident recruit reconsider their life choices. You are here because someone, somewhere thought you had potential. My job is to determine whether that someone was an optimist or an idiot. A few nervous laughs scattered through the crowd. Vayne's expression did not change. Today we begin with basics. Combat awareness, threat assessment, understanding when to fight and when to— Excuse me, instructor. One of the Scalorian cadets, a particularly arrogant specimen named Crix, raised 2 of his 4 arms. I notice we have a human in our cohort. Should we be concerned about, contamination of standards? Oh, here we go. I leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Humans were relatively new to the Galactic Alliance, having only achieved faster-than-light travel about 30 rotations ago. Most species still saw them as the bumbling newcomers, the lucky primitives who stumbled into the galactic community by accident rather than design. Mira did not react, just kept examining her bracelet like Crix had commented on the weather. Vayne's eyes slid toward Crix with the warmth of a black hole. Your concern is noted, Cadet Crix, and dismissed. This human passed the same entrance requirements as you, unless you are suggesting our screening process is flawed. No, instructor, but I mean look at her. Crix gestured dismissively toward Mira. She is wearing a toy to combat training, a child's bracelet. Does that not indicate a fundamental lack of seriousness? Several other cadets snickered. Even some of the Vex were pulsing with what I recognized as amused agreement. Mira finally looked up, her expression blank. It is not a toy, she said quietly. Her voice carried none of the defensive anger you might expect. Just a simple statement of fact. Oh, please enlighten us then, Crix said. his mandibles clicking with laughter. Is it perhaps a devastating weapon? A shield generator? Or maybe it is one of those legendary Earth technologies we keep hearing about but never actually see. More laughter. Even Torvik was chuckling beside me. Poor thing, he murmured. First day and already being mocked. Humans really should have waited another century before attempting military integration. But I was not laughing. Because I was watching Vayne, and Vayne was not laughing either. In fact, Vayne had gone completely still, his eyes locked on Mira's wrist with an intensity that made my spine ridges tingle with instinctive unease. Mira held up her arm, showing the bracelet to the room. It is called a friendship bracelet, she explained, still in that same calm tone. My little sister made it for me before I left Earth. She is 7. It took her 3 hours because she kept messing up the pattern, and she cried when she thought it was not good enough. But I told her it was perfect. How touching, Crix drawled. A sentimental trinket. That will certainly help you in combat simulations. The pattern she used, Mira continued, ignoring him, is called the spiral stripe. Blue for loyalty, green for growth. The beads are from her rock collection. She said they would protect me. Obviously I do not believe in magic rocks, but I believe in her, so I wear it. Every day. No exceptions. Adorable, Crix said. Perhaps after we finish training, we can all make bracelets and talk about our feelings. The room erupted in laughter again. Even some of the instructors observing from the upper levels were smiling. Humans and their strange emotional attachments to objects. How very primitive. Vayne raised one clawed hand, and the laughter died instantly. He was still staring at the bracelet, and now I could see what I had missed before. His scales had shifted color slightly, taking on the darker shade that Corthans exhibited when experiencing extreme stress or recognition of danger. Cadet Mira, Vayne said slowly, each word measured and precise. That bracelet. The colors. The pattern. Where exactly did you say it came from? Mira blinked, clearly confused by the question. Earth's, sir. My sister made it. Like I said. Yes, but the pattern itself. The design. Has your sister had access to Galactic Alliance databases, historical archives? Sir, she is 7. She learned the pattern from a video on the human internet. Some kind of craft tutorial. Mira's confusion was growing. Is there a problem? Vayne was quiet for a long moment. Then, very deliberately, he touched a control on his wrist console. The holographic display at the front of the room flickered to life, showing a symbol I had seen exactly once before, during a classified briefing about ancient wars that predated most current member species of the Alliance. The symbol was a spiral pattern, blue and green intertwined with small circular markers at specific intervals. It was identical to Mira's bracelet pattern. Does anyone, Vayne asked the room, his voice carrying a weight that made every cadet stand straighter, recognize this symbol? Silence. Even Crix had stopped smirking. This, Vayne continued, is the mark of the Keepers, a designation used approximately 12,000 cycles ago by an organization that operated in this region of space. They were, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, peacekeepers. After a fashion, individuals who traveled between worlds, resolving conflicts, preventing wars, protecting developing species from exploitation. I felt my neck ridges flatten in shock. The Keepers were not just ancient history. They were legend, myth, the kind of stories you told to inspire cadets but never expected to encounter in reality. The Keepers disappeared roughly 9,000 cycles ago, Vayne continued. Every member, every station, every record, gone within a single rotation. No one knows what happened to them. No one knows where they went. But every species that encountered them remembered them with a mixture of gratitude and terror. Because the Keepers did not simply keep peace. They enforced it, absolutely, without compromise. Mira looked down at her bracelet, then back up at Vayne. Sir, I think there's been some kind of mistake. This is just a friendship bracelet. My sister did not know anything about space peacekeepers or ancient organizations. She is 7. How old is your species' presence in space, Cadet? About 30 years, sir. Since we achieved FTL capability. And before that? How long have humans been using symbols, creating art, passing down patterns? Mira hesitated. Tens of thousands of years, sir. At least. Vayne nodded slowly. The Keepers last operated in your solar system approximately 9,000 cycles ago. Your planet was primitive then. Stone Age technology. No space travel. But they were there, and according to historical records, they made contact with local population. The implications hung in the air like a gravity well. You are suggesting, Mira said carefully, that this pattern, this design my sister learned from the internet, which probably came from some craft blog, which probably came from some grandmother's pattern book, which probably came from who knows where going back generations, might somehow trace back 9,000 years to aliens who visited Earth. I am suggesting, Vayne replied, that nothing is ever truly forgotten. Information persists. Patterns survive. And sometimes what we think is simple coincidence is actually an echo of something far older and far more significant. Crix made a derisive sound. This is absurd. You are telling me that a human child accidentally recreated an ancient alien symbol because of what? Genetic memory? Divine intervention? Random chance? I am telling you, Vayne said, his tone dropping to something that made my survival instincts scream warnings, that the Keepers did not simply vanish. They left. And according to the classified documents I have access to, documents that very few beings in this galaxy are permitted to see, they left because they found something. A world. A species with potential, something worth protecting in secret rather than in public. He turned to face Mira fully. A species that was nowhere near ready for galactic contact. A species that would need thousands of cycles to develop on its own, without interference, until they were strong enough to join the community of worlds on equal footing. A species the Keepers believed would one day change everything. The silence in the training hall was absolute. Earth, Mira whispered. Earth, Vayne confirmed. And if I am correct, if the Keepers did what I suspect they did, then they did not just observe your species, they left markers, signs, patterns woven into your culture so deeply that even 9,000 cycles later, a 7-year-old child can recreate them without understanding what they mean. He stepped closer to Mira, his massive form towering over her much smaller human frame. That bracelet is not a toy, Cadet. It is a message, a declaration. Whether your sister knew it or not, she marked you with the symbol of the most powerful peacekeeping force this galaxy has ever known. A force that disappeared into legend, because they chose to protect a developing species in secret. Your species, Rex, opened his mouth, then closed it again. No one was laughing now. Mira stared at her bracelet, really seeing it perhaps for the first time. The pattern that had seemed so simple, so innocent, now carried weight that made my tactical implants flag it as a potential threat indicator. So what does that mean? Mira asked, quietly. For me? For Earth? For any of this? Vayne's expression was unreadable. It means, Cadet, that you just walked into this academy wearing the mark of beings who could end conflicts between civilizations with nothing but their presence. Beings who were respected and feared in equal measure. Beings who chose your world as worth protecting above all others. He paused, letting that sink in. It means that every person in this room who laughed at your bracelet, who dismissed you as a primitive human playing soldier, just made a mistake that would have gotten them killed 9,000 cycles ago. Because mocking someone who wears the Keeper's mark, even unknowingly, is the kind of cosmic stupidity that has consequences. Vayne's eyes swept across the assembled cadets. Class dismissed, he said flatly. Except you, Cadet Mira. You and I to have a very long conversation about your family history, and exactly what other innocent traditions your species might have inherited from the most dangerous peacekeepers in galactic history. As the cadets filed out, Crix passing Mira with his mandibles clamped shut and his arrogance completely deflated. I turned to Torvik. Did that actually just happen? I asked. Torvik was pulling up historical archives on his datapad, his crystalline fingers moving faster than I had ever seen. If Vayne is right, he muttered, then humans are not the lucky primitives we thought they were. They are something else entirely. Something the Keepers deemed worth hiding, worth protecting. worth investing 9,000 cycles of secret observation and cultural influence into. He looked up at me, and I saw fear in his eyes. What kind of species, Torvik whispered, do you have to be to make the keepers themselves decide you are their legacy? Below, Mira stood alone in the training hall, turning her bracelet around her wrist while Vayne pulled up more files, more data, more pieces of a puzzle that suddenly seemed infinitely larger and more terrifying than any of us had imagined. And somewhere 9 light-years away on a primitive planet called Earth, a 7-year-old girl was probably making another bracelet, humming to herself, completely unaware that she had just recreated a symbol that once made warlords surrender and empires reconsider their life choices. The humans had arrived at the Galactic Institute, and apparently they had brought their history with them, whether they knew it or not. 3 hours later, I was standing outside Vayne's private office, waiting for clearance that I absolutely should not have been granted, but somehow received anyway. Torvik had practically shoved me toward the security checkpoint, his crystalline features twisted with the kind of manic curiosity that gets researchers killed in poorly written horror vids. You have to find out what they are talking about, he had insisted, his voice pitched high with excitement. The Keepers. Krevoth. The actual Keepers. Do you understand what this means for xenoanthropological studies? For military history? For everything? I understood that my career could end very quickly if I was caught eavesdropping on a classified briefing, but apparently my sense of self-preservation had taken a vacation the moment Vayne's scales had changed color. The security drone scanned me 3 times before finally blinking green, and the door slid open with a hiss that sounded judgmental. Inside, Vayne's office was exactly what you would expect from a Korthan warrior, with more classified clearances than social skills, weapons mounted on walls, each one a trophy from some conflict I would never be cleared to know about. Holographic displays showing tactical readouts from battles across 7 sectors, and in the center of it all, sitting in a chair that was definitely not designed for human proportions, was Mira, still wearing that bracelet. Vayne looked up as I entered, his expression flat. Observer Krevoth. I did not summon you. No sir, but you did flag the session for academic observation, and as the primary recorder for Combat Theory 101, I have clearance to... You have clearance to document training exercises, not classified historical briefings. Vayne's tail twitched, which in Korthan body language meant he was approximately 3 seconds from throwing me out a window. However, given that this information will likely become relevant to future training protocols, and given that you are already here and have somehow convinced security that you belong, you may stay. But if you repeat anything you hear outside this room without proper authorization, I will personally ensure your next assignment involves cataloging asteroid mineral content in the outer dark for the remainder of your career. Understood, sir. I moved to the corner, activating my recording implants while trying to look like furniture. Vayne turned back to Mira, who was examining a holographic display showing what appeared to be archaeological sites, scattered across Earth's surface. As I was explaining, Cadet, the Keepers did not simply visit your world once and leave. They maintained a presence, subtle but consistent for approximately 3,000 cycles, long enough to influence multiple human civilizations across different continents and time periods. Mira's eyes tracked across the display, pausing on locations I recognized from human historical databases: Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, Mesoamerica. You are saying aliens helped build the pyramids? Seriously? That is the explanation we are going with? No. Vayne's tone carried the patience of someone who had explained this concept many times before to many skeptical cadets. I am saying the Keepers observed civilizations that built pyramids, and in some cases provided guidance that prevented those civilizations from destroying themselves before they could develop further. They did not build your monuments. They did not give you technology. They did not interfere directly with your development. That would have violated their primary directive, which was what, exactly? Protection without interference. Guidance without control. The Keepers believed that species must develop naturally, must make their own mistakes, and learn from them. But they also believed that certain species showed potential worth preserving. So they watched. They waited, and when necessary they intervened in the smallest possible ways to prevent extinction-level catastrophes. Vayne pulled up another display, this one showing a timeline that stretched back thousands of Earth years. In 2047 BCE, your planet experienced a near miss with an asteroid that would have caused an extinction event. It did not hit Earth. According to Keeper records, it was deflected by exactly 3 degrees, just enough to send it past your planet with minimal gravitational disruption. Mira leaned forward. They saved us from an asteroid. Why? We were barely civilized then. Stone tools and early agriculture. What made us worth saving? That, Vayne said quietly, is the question that has haunted galactic historians for 9,000 cycles. The Keepers never explained their selection criteria. They simply chose certain species and protected them, sometimes for thousands of cycles, until those species were ready to stand on their own. He manipulated the display, bringing up images that made my recording implants stutter with recognition protocols. Symbols, patterns, artistic motifs that appeared across human cultures, separated by oceans and centuries. And there, woven through all of it like a thread connecting everything, was the spiral pattern, blue and green, the Keeper's mark. Your species has been drawing this pattern for 9,000 years, Vayne continued. It appears in pottery from ancient China, in textile patterns from Peru, in cave paintings in Australia, in ceremonial jewelry from Africa. Always the same basic design with minor variations. Always blue and green when color was available. Your ancestors did not know what it meant, but they remembered it. They preserved it. They passed it down through generations until it became so embedded in human culture that a 7-year-old child can recreate it as a gift for her sister. Mira touched her bracelet, her expression caught between wonder and disbelief. So what happened to them? The Keepers? If they were so powerful, so dedicated to protecting species like us, why did they vanish? Vayne was silent for a long moment, his scales shifting through colors that indicated internal conflict. That information is classified at levels even I struggle to access. But I can tell you what is publicly known among senior military leadership. 9,000 cycles ago, the Keepers detected something, a threat, not to one species or one sector, but to the entire galactic community, something that required their full attention and resources to combat. What kind of threat? Unknown. The records are fragmentary at best, but whatever it was, the Keepers decided that stopping it was more important than maintaining their visible presence. They withdrew from public operations, shut down their stations, recalled their agents, and disappeared into the gaps between known space. Some historians believe they are still out there fighting whatever threat they discovered. Others think they lost and were destroyed. A few believe they succeeded and simply chose not to return. Vayne zoomed the display out, showing the current Galactic Alliance territory. But before they left, they did something unprecedented. They selected one final species to protect, one final world to watch over, and they did it in secret, with no public records, no official declarations, nothing that would draw attention from whatever threat they were facing. They wove their symbols into that species' culture, left markers and patterns that would persist for thousands of cycles, and then they vanished. Earth, Mira whispered again. Earth, Vayne confirmed. Your world was their last project, their final legacy. And if my understanding of Keeper philosophy is correct, they believed humanity would one day become something extraordinary, something worth protecting even at the cost of their own visibility and influence. I could not help myself. But sir, humans are, pardon the observation, not particularly impressive by galactic standards. They are physically weak, technologically primitive by comparison, and they only just achieved faster-than-light travel 30 rotations ago. What could the Keepers possibly have seen in them? Vayne's eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me regret speaking immediately. Observer Crevath, how many species in the current Galactic Alliance developed spaceflight while simultaneously maintaining over 200 separate nation-states on their homeworld, each with different governments, languages and cultural systems? I checked my database quickly. None, sir. Most species achieve global unity before attempting space exploration. It is considered a basic requirement for resource coordination. Humans went to space while still divided, Vayne interrupted. They built faster-than-light drives while their planet was experiencing active armed conflicts between multiple factions. They developed technology capable of destroying their entire world, and somehow, despite coming close multiple times, they never actually did it. Do you understand how statistically improbable that is? He pulled up more data, and I felt my throat ridges constrict as I processed the information. Most species that develop weapons of mass destruction before achieving global unity destroy themselves within 2 generations. It is almost a universal constant, the ability to annihilate your own species combined with tribal territorial instincts equals extinction. Every simulation we run confirms this. Every historical analysis supports it, except humans. They survived. They thrived. They went to space while carrying all their divisions and conflicts with them. And instead of destroying themselves, they turned outward and started exploring. Mira was staring at her bracelet again, her expression thoughtful. So the Keepers bet on us, because we are too stubborn to kill ourselves even when we have every reason and opportunity to do so. I believe, Vayne said slowly, the Keepers bet on you because you represent something unique. A species capable of both tremendous violence and tremendous compassion. Beings who can fight wars over ideology while simultaneously sending aid to disaster zones on the other side of their planet. A civilization that can produce weapons capable of ending all life while also producing art, music, literature, and philosophy that celebrates life in all its forms. He paused, his scales settling into a deep bronze color that indicated profound respect. The Keepers specialized in finding potential where others saw only chaos. They looked at primitive species and imagined what they might become given enough time and protection. And when they looked at humans 9,000 cycles ago, they saw something worth investing everything they had into preserving. A chime sounded from Vayne's console. He glanced at it, frowned, then looked back at Mira. It appears word has spread about your bracelet. I have received 17 requests for meetings from various department heads, 4 from off-station researchers, and 1 from Galactic Intelligence that I am required by protocol to forward to you. Galactic Intelligence wants to talk to me? Why? Because Cadet Mira, you are now the first confirmed human to display Keeper iconography in an official military setting. That makes you interesting to people whose job involves tracking ancient organizations that might still be operational. They will want to interview you, examine your family history, possibly investigate your entire planet's cultural database looking for more Keeper influences. Mira stood up, and despite being nearly a meter shorter than Vayne, she somehow managed to look utterly unfazed by the situation. And if I refuse to cooperate? If I just want to complete my training and not become some kind of archaeological curiosity? Vayne's expression might have been a smile, though with Corthan facial structures it was always hard to tell. Then I would say you are exactly the kind of stubborn, independently minded individual the Keepers would have appreciated. But I would also say that running from this will not make it go away. Your bracelet has been scanned and recorded. The pattern is in the system now. Researchers will study it. Historians will analyze it. Intelligence officers will investigate it. You can either cooperate and help shape the narrative, or you can hide and let others define what you represent. That is not much of a choice. No, Vayne agreed, but it is the only one available. The Keepers marked your species, whether intentionally or as a side effect of their protection protocols. That mark persists, and now that we have recognized it, everything changes. He pulled up a final display, this one showing the current cadet roster for the Galactic Military Institute. Every species here has their own history, their own legends, their own cultural heritage, but only one species has a direct, documented connection to the Keepers. Only one species carries their symbols without understanding their meaning. Only one species represents the last project of the most powerful peacekeeping force in galactic history. Vayne looked directly at Mira. You walked into my training hall thinking you were just another cadet, trying to prove yourself in a new environment. But you are more than that now. Whether you want it or not, you represent something larger. A mystery 9,000 cycles old. A question every historian and military strategist wants answered. What did the Keepers see in humanity that made them abandon everything else to protect you? Mira was quiet for a long moment, turning the bracelet around her wrist. Then she looked up at Vayne with an expression that I recognized from countless human entertainment vids. Determination mixed with just enough reckless confidence to be dangerous. "Then I guess I should probably pass my training with high marks," she said calmly. "Because if I am going to represent the species the Keepers thought was worth protecting, I should probably make sure I do not embarrass them by failing basic combat theory." Vayne's scales shifted to a color I had never seen before, something that might have been approval or might have been amusement, or might have been the Corthan equivalent of recognizing a kindred spirit. "Dismissed, Cadet. Report to Simulation Bay 7 tomorrow at 0600 hours. We are going to see exactly what kind of potential the Keepers saw in your species, and if you survive the training scenarios I have planned, we will discuss what happens next." Mira saluted, the gesture still slightly awkward but improving, and walked toward the door. As she passed me, she paused. "Observer Krivath, right, yes, Cadet. When you write your report about today, do me a favor. Tell them I did not cry, did not panic, and did not run away. Because my little sister is going to read about this someday, and I want her to know her bracelet made a difference." Then she was gone, leaving me standing in Vayne's office with approximately 17,000 questions and absolutely no idea how to process any of them. Vayne turned back to his displays, already pulling up training scenarios that looked designed to break beings twice Mira's size. "Observer Krivath, in your report make sure to note that the human cadet demonstrated remarkable composure when informed that her species might be the chosen successors to an ancient peacekeeping force. Also note that she immediately focused on practical concerns rather than philosophical implications, which is either admirably pragmatic or deeply concerning depending on how you interpret Keeper selection criteria." "Yes, sir." I hesitated. "Sir, do you really believe the Keepers are still out there, still watching?" Vayne did not look up from his work. "I believe that organizations capable of influencing civilizers across thousands of cycles do not simply disappear without reason. I believe that marking a species with your symbols and then vanishing suggests you expect that species to eventually understand what those symbols mean. And I believe that a 7-year-old human child recreating a 9,000-cycle-old pattern without knowing its significance suggests that whatever the Keepers planned, it is still unfolding." He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "The question is not whether the Keepers are still watching. The question is what they expect humanity to do now that we have recognized their mark. And more importantly, what happens if humans start to understand what that mark really represents." I left the office with my recording implants full of data that would probably get me promoted or court-martialed depending on who reviewed it first. Outside, the station continued its normal operations, cadets training, instructors teaching, observers documenting, everything exactly as it should be. Except nothing was normal anymore. Because somewhere on a primitive planet, 9 light years away, children were making bracelets and drawing patterns and humming songs, all without knowing that they were keeping alive the legacy of beings who once made warlords surrender with nothing but their presence. The humans had arrived at the Galactic Institute wearing the mark of the Keepers, and every being in 7 sectors who understood what that meant was suddenly very, very interested in what Earth's species would become next. I passed Crix in the corridor. He was not laughing anymore. He was walking very quickly in the opposite direction, his mandibles clamped shut, his arrogance replaced with something that looked suspiciously like fear. Good, I thought. The Scalorians should be afraid. Because the humans were not lucky primitives who stumbled into galactic society by accident. There was something else entirely, something the Keepers themselves had deemed worth 9,000 cycles.